Hey guys, coming in to be another movie review for you guys, and this movie we're reviewing, I was really looking forward to this movie, I have to tell you guys. Definitely, I've been looking forward to this movie for a while now, because it was supposed to come out in March, if you guys know that, and it was pushed back to December, apparently for Oscar reasons, so that way this film had a better chance of getting Oscars, and, that movie is In the Heart of the Sea. Now, I could have watched this movie like a week ago. Honestly, I could have because it came online early to Solar Movie, and I started watching this movie, and for whatever reason, I didn't want to continue it. I didn't feel like continuing it, and then I heard, bad reviews about this movie, and I basically went into it with relatively low expectations. Even though I was anticipating this movie, I'm like, you know what? This could be really disappointing. The Walk, Everest are good movies, definitely, especially Everest being the best of the bunch, but things like The Walk, they weren't as great as I thought they were going to be, and especially because it was pushed back is usually not a good sign. So it really didn't surprise me that I really didn't like this movie that much. In fact, In the Heart of the Sea, I found to be quite a bore, I have to say. I was quite bored in this movie. I don't really care about it, and I don't really have too much to say about it. So this review is probably going to be relatively short. I don't have too much to say about this movie, really. The plot of this movie is not about Moby Dick, if you guys didn't know that. It's not based on Moby Dick. It's the story of how the author made Moby Dick, basically. There's this ship called the Essex, and there's this whaling ship. There are these whalers because whaling was very popular back in the 1800s, and basically they want to find a whale and whale it, but it kind of backfires when this whale attacks their ship, and they basically have to survive without the whale, and this movie is very boring. Honestly, it really is. I mean, the plot of this movie isn't even like it sounds a lot more interesting than it is. Now, I'll get into why. There are so many reasons why this movie isn't that great, and it's really disappointing, mainly because the fact that it was pushed back for this long, and this is what we get. We get a relatively basic movie here. I mean, I really could not stay invested in this movie, mainly because of the cast in this movie, which I was looking forward to. I mean, you had a pretty good cast here. Chris Hemsworth, Benjamin Walker, Murphy, Tom Holland, Brandon Gleeson all give good performances. I will say that. They all do a good job. It's just, I didn't give a shit about any of these characters. Not a single one of these characters I cared about. Not a single one of these characters I cared if they survived. I didn't really care about any of them at all. Especially Chris Hemsworth, who I at points couldn't take seriously in this movie because he does this thing throughout this movie where he's supposed to be an American with an American accent, and then he just ditches it. And at least in Blackhead, he kept the American accent. In this, he's American, then he's British, then he's American, then he's British, and it doesn't go together with the same character. It feels like two different people that he's playing. And damn, Chris Hemsworth, he just can't pick good movies. Blackhead bore me to death, and this really wasn't that much better. I mean, his character is given the most basic of traits. His character is literally, he has a pregnant wife, and he wants to make his father proud or something like that. I really found his character to be quite boring. I didn't care about his character. I didn't really feel leadership in his character. I didn't really connect with his character, because his character is just so basic. There's nothing that really makes his character stand out. There's nothing that makes his character that interesting, and I really didn't care about him. As far as Benjamin Walker, I didn't really care about his character either. And you're really supposed to, because these two characters have a rivalry, which is interesting, but I really wasn't that interested in it because I just didn't care about the characters. So how am I supposed to care about a rivalry if I don't care about the characters? It's just that simple. I mean, I don't. I didn't care about the characters, so I didn't care about what happened between them. I really didn't. Yes, it sounds interesting, but they just should have added a lot more character development to these characters because they really didn't. I mean, George Pollard Jr. is just a captain of a ship. Owen Chase, Chris Hemsworth's character wants to be a captain, but George Pollard's already a captain because of his father, basically, and these two men clash, which again sounds very interesting, but really isn't that interesting, and I found them to be very boring, and I really didn't care about either of their characters. I didn't care about their survival. Same with Cillian Murphy. I don't even remember his character. I don't even think he had much to do. Tom Holland has literally nothing to do in this movie, and it sucks because he's the one recounting the story. A large part of this movie, and one of the reasons the movie fails so much, is because the character of Herman Melville, who is the author of Moby Dick. He is going to Thomas Nickerson to find out the story of the Essex, and The problem is half of these events Thomas Nickerson is not even present in. So Tom Holland's character is essentially pointless in this movie. I didn't give a shit about his character, and I was really disappointed because he was the one I was looking forward to seeing the most of, and he really did nothing. I mean, Tom Holland, I can't remember anything he did in this movie except towards the end of this movie. I don't even think he was in this movie for that long. I didn't really see him that much, and he really wasn't in it a lot. And as far as all the other characters go, they really weren't that interesting, and I just didn't really care about them, which is a really problem in a survival movie. That really is a big problem. And a lot of the reasons why this fails so much is because the screenplay. I really felt bad though for Ron Howard, the director, who I usually really like his movies. He usually does a very good job with his directing. And this one I just don't think worked out. I mean, this is not the kind of movie or story in general that I felt really need to be told. His direction is good here. I will say that he had some good ideas put into this movie. I didn't think his direction was bad per se. I think the tone was pretty good. It wasn't interesting to begin with. His directing is not the issue. The issue I have with this movie is the screenplay. The story in general is not interesting. I mean, there's a reason why we have stories based on other stories, because the story that we have really isn't that interesting. And what you think this movie is going to be, it's not. If you think this movie is about a group of people being attacked by a whale, that's not this movie at all. A lot of this movie is just a rivalry between all of them. That's what essentially gets them into this mess, because the captain drives them into a storm. This idiot captain drives them into a storm. I'm not kidding you. That's what happens. And, they're attacked by a whale, and it really meant nothing. In fact, all that really did for me was actually keep me invested. When the whale went away, I was so bored. The dialogue is so uninteresting in this movie, and so dead, and the characters are taking it so seriously that I was just so bored watching this movie. There's no fun in this movie. There's really not. It's a dark movie, and I really wasn't enjoying it. I thought it was very boring, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I kept drifting away. I went on things, I went on YouTube, I listened to music, I was looking at things on Snapchat. I could not stay invested in this movie, and I knew it was going on. It's just, I could not stay invested. The second that I got invested, I got bored. That's the reason why, guys. If I tried to get invested in this movie, I was bored, and I wanted to turn it off, but I knew I had to review it to you guys. I'm like, I really want to turn this movie off, but I knew I had to review it for you guys, so I knew I had to stay invested, but unfortunately, I just couldn't stay invested. And I try to stay invested in movies I get bored in. I've tried that many times. An example, The Walk. I've tried to get invested in that, but it didn't really work till like the third half of the movie. This never got invested. I never once got invested in this movie. Unless the whale came, when that whale went away, again, I was very bored because there was a large portion of the movie where they're on lifeboats, and I just didn't give a shit. And there's nothing new that they added to this story. I've seen this story done a million times, and because I didn't care about the characters, I don't care about their survival. So the tension is just not there. I didn't feel any tension. I didn't feel like there was something wrong happening. I didn't feel like this could end up really bad for these characters. And it really didn't. There really was, I don't think, any sense of tension. There was really no sense of, are they really going to get out of this? Because I really didn't feel the whale in general was that big of a threat, because we only saw the whale a couple of times, and this was about whaling anyway. So shouldn't they know how to take this whale down? I thought it was really stupid, and their end of the movie, the way they take down the whale is so stupid, honestly. The way they took down the whale I thought was ridiculous, and again, I know this is based on a true story. There are just some stories that shouldn't be told. I mean, this is essentially, if you were to tell a story of somebody fishing, it's not interesting. Okay, this is what happens when you're on a boat. You sit there, you talk. It's boring. It really is. I've went fishing once in my life. It's a very boring experience. You sit there, you wait for the fish. It's not interesting. It's really not. That's basically what this movie is. If you were to tell a realistic story about someone going fishing, that's how boring this is. You know that wait that you have when you're just waiting for that fish to come onto the pole? That's how that feels with this movie, and it really felt like we were building up to something and never really got there. I will say there was some good build up in the beginning with Chris Hemsworth's character, but it really didn't add to anything. I didn't care about his character, and I really was bored. The cinematography to this movie, I really didn't feel went with this movie, I have to say. I mean, the whale looks great, definitely. The whale looked fantastic. I just felt there was a bit too much detail, honestly. This movie essentially felt like two different movies because of cinematography. The movie is a biopic, at its core, But at times when you get to this cinematography, it feels like something like Titanic when it's not that at all. This is not the next Titanic. If you guys were expecting Titanic, that's not this movie. It's not that at all, and it's very disappointing because they could have handled it a lot better, but the cinematography just does not go with the world of this movie. It feels like it's a different movie. It doesn't go within the heart of the sea, and I was very disappointed by the cinematography. I really wanted to like it, and don't get me wrong, it looks great. It just doesn't go with this movie because the movie itself doesn't feel big. And I've heard people say this, the cinematography is crowded. It really is. And I didn't really get that sense of tension from the cinematography either. I really didn't. And the whale to me, I didn't really care, honestly. If you want a good example of a threat from a creature, watch Jaws. That's a good example of that. In the Heart of the Sea is not that. The score I thought was fine, nothing really that memorable. The editing, really, I don't understand the editing. I really don't. Like I said, we're supposed to be recounting a story from Tom Holland's character's events, and it doesn't make sense when we're seeing things that his character clearly did not see, so it doesn't go with his story. And I can tell you guys a way they could make this movie a lot more interesting. If this movie would have been about the character of Herman Melville wanting to tell the story of Moby Dick, that would have been a lot more interesting because where the movie ends is where I wanted this movie to continue. I'm like, you know what, this could actually get really interesting. I'd actually like to see more of this. And then just ended. It ended and I was quite disappointed because I just felt the story in general wasn't interesting. They could have done a lot more with it. They could have like maybe just shown a little bit of this story. The story we get just wasn't good. And I'm gonna be honest, the story where Herman Melville went to Thomas Nicholson, I was into that. I really was. I thought it was interesting to see what was gonna happen here. I don't get what the point of it was, though. I really don't. I mean, I get that he was his inspiration to write Moby Dick, but why do we need to see this story? I don't know why we need to see this story. I don't know why we need a whole movie on it. I just don't get the point of it. I felt the movie would have been a lot better if it just would have been about Herman Melville writing Moby Dick and having this be a small section of the film. That would have been a lot better, and that I would have enjoyed a lot more of. And this film was very, very badly promoted. This movie looks like a much more epic movie than it is, and it's really not. There are 3 scenes of tension. 3 scenes! That's it. There's not much tension throughout this movie. Okay, you wanted tension in a movie? Again, watch Titanic, watch Jaws, watch movies like that. Those movies have tension. This movie, I didn't really feel like had any tension whatsoever. I didn't give a shit about the characters, and I just didn't care about this movie overall, and I was very, very bored. I really want to enjoy this movie, and to its credit, I can give it, I can give credit where credit is due to the actors because I did think they did a good job overall, and I thought the whale stuff was interesting, but overall, I was very bored with this movie, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to give In the Heart of Sea a 2.5 out of 5 or a C minus. I was extremely bored, guys. There was really not any time I was invested in this story. I never felt it really was going anywhere, and I really just wanted to pop in another movie. When I'm watching a movie and I feel like watching a different movie, that's not good. It's really not. I did not care, really. I really didn't. I mean, maybe toward like the last 15 minutes, I thought it was interesting, but this movie's over 2 hours and it feels long. It really does. I can't recommend this. I really can't, guys. I mean, this is a movie that I think it's going to come out and no one's going to remember it. It's one of those kind of movies. It's going to be a movie that, like, no one sees. I mean, this movie failed. It failed at the box office, and I'm not surprised. I mean, it's been pushed back, and this is what we get. This is what we get. This is very disappointing. If Ron Howard really thought this was going to win an Oscar, I don't know why he thought that, because there is no way a single one of these actors are getting anything Oscar-related. Not even effects-wise. Like, the effects, like I said, aren't even that good. And overall, guys, that's basically my review. Unfortunately, this movie was very disappointing, but let me know what you guys thought of this movie. You have seen it, like I said. I was very, very disappointed. I really wanted this to be a lot more than it was. To me, I was very bored. I could not stay invested. And I know you're like, oh, you didn't focus. I tried. I tried to focus, and I felt like falling asleep, okay? It's that simple. If I am going to focus on a movie, I want to care about the characters. If I don't care about the characters, there's no point on me focusing on anything unless tension happens. happens. Honestly, there's just, in my opinion at least, there's no point in doing that. That's just wasting your time and wasting my time, and I don't want to do that. I didn't even want to review this movie for you guys, but I review every film I review unless it's a documentary. But that is my review. Hope you enjoyed them. Just guys saw this movie, have seen, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for another movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.